For the past 2 years, Jocko Fuel has been the only supplement I've consumed. It's helped me stay in shape now that my competitive career is finished. If you've been waiting to try Jocko, the wait is over. Jocko has now teamed with Walmart, bringing clean fuel to the entire nation. Jocko Fuel is loaded with all the good stuff and none of the bad. And I'm talking no added sugars, no artificial sweeteners, and absolutely no gray area or banned substances. Just pure, clean fuel to power your performances. Jocko Fuel is now available in Walmart nationwide. Products available at your local Walmart are Jocko Malt, ready to drink, Jocko Malt powder, and Jocko pre-workout. How convenient. Guys, the time is now. Consider trying some of my favorites like Jocko Go and Jocko Hydrate. You can even do it online. Use code CHAEL30 at JockoFuel.com or just stop by your local Walmart and get your hands on some Jocko ASAP. Don't wait, might not last. Fuel up with Jocko Fuel and crush your goals. Now there's no excuse for not having clean fuel. Guys, I want you to go get Jocko Fuel today at Walmart.
Ian Garry looked great. Ian Garry, you got to understand what history says. But before we get into here's what Chael thinks. History says, okay, two guys that know each other well, two guys that have competed. Because see, that right there makes you close. Nobody has a training partner's ass they can go in and whip. It doesn't work that way. No matter how good you are, if you're with a guy and he's your training partner, he gets familiar with you. He understands what he needs to do to extend a fight. Even if he knows that you can whip him, he still also knows what he can do to get some minutes in on the clock. And history says when you find yourself in these situations and things are close, the younger guy wins. And Ian Garry had a very legitimate chance tonight. And Ian Garry physically did some things extremely well. Ian Garry did what Nate Quarry, I feel, developed. And Nate Quarry would call it anti-wrestling. And every time Rakhmonov closed the gap and got his hands on Garry, Garry backed up. It's important that you understand that. If you're ever dealing with a guy who's a better wrestler than you, back up. In wrestling, that's illegal. It's caution you, will stop you. Not in grappling, not in jiu-jitsu and judo and grappling, in wrestling specifically, which for MMA is very relevant from a takedown base. In wrestling specifically, it is illegal to back up. The reason it's illegal is no wrestling can take place if one guy is backing up. Every wrestler and every move, and I mean all of them, 100% are created for when a guy is standing his ground or coming forward. So if you're Ian Garry and you're going to get overwhelmed in wrestling, don't wrestle. How do you not wrestle? You do the one thing in wrestling that's illegal. Back up. When you run into a fence, there are some takedown opportunities that are exposed and developed on the fence. But aside from Khabib, nobody's able to utilize them. Going into the fence is a very good way to defend yourself from being taken down. I'm just sharing with you, when Ian Garry starts doing this, Rakhmonov had every right to get frustrated, but he didn't. He did not. He changed on the fly. Rakhmonov was not in the 5-round club. Rakhmonov has never been scheduled for 5 rounds. Ian Garry was not in the 5-round club. Ian Garry has never been to championship rounds. He has never been in a fight that was scheduled for potential to have championship rounds. So it was a big deal tonight, and Ian Garry won in several categories. Rakhmonov has never lost a position. Can't say that anymore. Rakhmonov has never lost a round. I don't know who those judges gave the 5th round to. I couldn't hear. I bet they gave it to Garry, though. I think that. And if I'm right, then he can't say that anymore. Rakhmonov has never gone the distance with anybody. Nobody could survive 3 rounds with Rakhmonov, let alone the 5. Ian Garry did what no other guy could do, plus 70%. That's very impressive. And I'm campaigning for Ian Garry. I believe the winner of this fight should face Blal. And he can do the whole, hey, Chael, Captain Obvious. That's what he's going to do. They even faced him off at the end. You can do that, but that would mean you don't understand that Blal has a life-threatening infection in his leg. Blahal should not have been there tonight. Blahal is too tough and he's too brave to tell you guys that. But that is what he is dealing with. He's the hardest worker in the room, and he cannot do 50 push-ups right now. So for him to be there and get in there and to face off, I'm just sharing with you that fight is likely going to be delayed, and we'll see if we even get to that fight. Do not be stunned if Colby rolls through Buckley and Colby draws into a fight against Rakhmonov for an interim championship. I'm just sharing with you, don't be stunned. But what do you do with Garry? Because Garry won tonight for me. His stock went up tonight for me. Garry did a really good job. He had 3 wins tonight, three firsts that have never happened. And policy says, if you lose a fight, your next fight is against somebody who also lost their last fight. Policy says if you win against your last opponent, you will compete with a guy that won his last fight. But Garry didn't lose tonight, and I don't feel like Leon lost in his last fight, in the regard that Leon was a world champion. So whatever Leon does forever is protected to a degree. Leon will return to home soil for a main event. There is nothing more important than your card placement. Rakhmonov and Garry tonight was not a main event. In fact, Rakhmonov and Garry have never even been in a main event. I'm sharing for you, I don't look at Garry as a guy that lost. His stock is just fine with me. I don't look at Leon as the guy who's lost. His stock is just fine with me. And Leon is sitting there in February in a main event with an opponent that literally says on the official press release, to be determined. Well, I can determine for you that I would like for that to be Ian Garry. And I think that Ian Garry would do that. And I think that that would set us up for a number 1 contenders match. And you got to have the right players win, but I'm just sharing for you. I think that's where we need to go. I think that's the direction that we need to go in. Ultimately, it was a good fight. Rakhmonov, while having a slower pace than many predicted, Rakhmonov, while losing a position and being caught in a rear naked choke, he stayed calm. And if nothing else, now Rakhmonov, who has been so tightly compared to Chimaev is very violent, and we have only seen violence from Chimaev. But up until tonight, we've only seen violence from Rakhmonov. Rakhmonov ended up in there with a really good fighter who was young, who was undefeated, who was hungry, who was in good spirits. I mean, check the boxes. That was a hard fight. And Rakhmonov, at a minimum, did show us he's a complete fighter. He can punch, he can kick, he can defend. I mean, he was slipping punches, he was rolling with punches, he was pulling back from punches, he was doing the same thing with kicks. Very good fight. Slower pace. Didn't have that violence that many of us are used to seeing from both Rakhmonov and Garry. But it was a good fight. It was a good display of skill. Will Rakhmonov draw into Blahal? I think so. Should Garry draw into Leon? I hope so.